This is a website I made in about 15 minutes called Bill's Blog. It was an absolute torture to make because I had to throw away absolutely everything I knew about website security to make this. So Bill writes blog posts. He is by no means a very, experienced website programmer. So he's not very good when it comes to website security. Here's the database for Bill's blogs. He stores everyone's account information in this database. He stores their password in plain text. It's not even encrypted. He stores their card information just like that. And this is a big problem for the users because they don't know that their information isn't being stored securely. But this website can easily be hacked using SQL injection. SQL stands for Structured Query Language. So what you're doing is you're querying a database with information. So if I go into account and I enter in admin@email.com, password, I say password. Say I'm trying to hack this. It's going to query the database. If you look into the code, here's that query. It's going to query the database where the email is equal to what you put in the email box and where the password is what you put in the password box. That doesn't exist, so it's going to return an error down here. So if I say sign in, there's the error you returned. And what this code is basically saying is if the sign in button is set what they put in the email box equal to the email variable and set what they put in the password box equal to the password variable. Now query that information from the database. So here's the query. You're selecting everything from the accounts. Here's the accounts, where email is equal to this and where password is equal to that. Bill didn't do any sort of security checks, so there is nothing to prevent SQL injection. To understand SQL injection, let me put it this way. Say I'm the programmer and I just want to say, I want email to be able to equal to something else, some standard. So I can say where email is equal to the email, what they put in there, or where 1 is equal to 1. So this is what I just typed in. I just typed in that little bit of code. And so 1 is equal to 1. That's a true statement. So when you query the database, it's going to look and it says, well, is it equal to what you put in the username box, or is 1 equal to 1? It will say, well, yeah, 1 is equal to 1, so that's true for all of these. Now let's match the password. I could do the same thing for password and say, or where 1 is equal to 1. And so it's going to log into this first account because that's the first one it's going to search. It's going to say, oh, 1 is equal to 1 for the username, 1 is equal to 1 for the password. That's true, so it must be this account that we're logging into. Now say I didn't enter that in my code, and I just had it like this. If you remember, I said that everything you put in the email box is going to be placed or injected into here. So I could inject that SQL statement by pasting this into the email and password box. So if I say sign in, it performs that query and I just logged into Bill's account without even knowing his username and password. And I just accessed his card number, his very realistic card number, his email. So I logged into the admin account, which was the first one in the database. But say I don't want to log into that account. Okay, here's example number 2. If we look into this code, we could perform SQL injections in only one of the text boxes. So we could say, or 1 is equal to 1. So it's going to query the database and it's going to take the true statement. But we could put in a specific password in the password box. For example, we could write password, and it's going to take the first username where the password is equal to password, because the first part of the SQL statement is going to be given as true. So admin, it's 1 is equal to 1 is true, Rick 1 is equal to 1 is true, for Kelly 1 equals to 1 is true, and for Henry 1 is equal to 1 is true. But for only one of these in this database, password is their password. So if I said, or 1 is equal to 1, to complete that SQL statement and make it true, and then I entered password into the password field and click sign in, I just logged into Henry's account. See, what it did was it looked at all these and said, oh, these are all going to be true. Now find the first one in the database where password is equal to password. And there it is. There is Henry. So let's try it with another account. Say we enter in boats as the password. We're just trying random passwords to hack, and we say boats. We just got into Rick's account. SQL injection is very powerful, and what we're doing is just making a true statement so that we can access things that are in the database through the website. Here's some other examples of making true statements. You could say, or A is equal to A. That's a true statement, so we're going to be logged into Bill's account. One thing I'd like to mention is that the email and the password box don't have to be identical. What I'm doing is just making a true statement in the SQL so that I can access a person in the database. So I could, for example, paste this into the password field, and up here just say where A is equal to A, and I will get into Bill's account. There's Bill's account. Because I made both true statements, this was the first one where both statements were true. One more example for you. Or where 1 is not equal to 2. And I'll just paste that into the password field. And we re-logged into Bill's account. So there are lots of ways to make that statement true. But 1 is equal to 1 or A is equal to A is the easiest. So for the programmers out there, if you want to try to help prevent this, I suggest looking into prepared statements and parameterized queries. They're a little more advanced, but I'll show you a simple way that's not considered as good of practice, but it still works. So if I change these variables to email unsafe and password login unsafe, I can take the variable that we're using down here in the query and say email is equal to my SQLi real escape string, which takes two parameters. One is the variable I use to connect to my database. Yours will most likely be different than mine. And the other one, we can pass in the email unsafe. Or we could just pass in that. But since we already have the variable prepared, we'll just use that one. So I'm going to do the same for password. And take the variable that we're using over here in the SQL statement. And passing in the parameter the unsafe. So now if we go over to the login and we try to do the same thing that we had just learned, and we say or 1 is equal to 1, paste that in, login information is incorrect. So this is probably one of the easier ways to help prevent against simple SQL injection. Thank you all so much for watching. Please leave a like and comment any sort of website related video you'd like to see next.